Hi friends, Rosie here. How many of you like to go on an adventure? Well, I have just the book for you today. It's actually a book about an adventure involving, something you're probably wearing right now, I'm going to guess. Look down to your feet. What do you see? Do you happen to have your socks on? Well, this book is about just that topic. Odd Socks is the name. The writer is R.A. Powell. So listen up as I read this little adventure, or at least a portion of this adventure. Chapter 1. Sophie was born in the big factory on the big hill in Socksville. The factory produced 10 billion socks every week, enough for the entire population of the world. Like all of the other socks that came and went before her, Sophie's life started out by being knitted in the big sewing machine. She was meticulously stitched together at supersonic speed, so fast in fact that the big sewing machine could stitch 1 million socks every minute. She was then tumbled onto the production line where the factory workers would stretch her and twist her to make sure she wasn't very strong. It was in the interests of the big factory on the big hill to make socks that weren't very strong. This meant the socks would get holes in them quickly, so people needed to buy more and more socks. This meant even more money for the Foot family, the richest family in the world, and the owners of the big factory on the big hill. That doesn't seem right. The Foot family employed 50,000 factory workers. Every person born in Socksville left school and went straight to work for them. The thick black smoke spewed out from the giant iron chimneys of the big factory on the big hill and cast a dark and formidable shadow over Socksville. The Foot family invented socks hundreds of years ago. Mr. Frank Foot was the head of the family and the chairman of the Foot Empire. He was a big, fat man with a bald head, and his face closely resembled a wrinkly leather beetroot. He wore thick-rimmed glasses, smoked giant cigars, and scared the living daylights out of everyone. His wife, Mrs. Foot, and children, Frankie and Junior, all lived in fear of him, just like everyone else did in Socksville. Does not sound very nice to me. After Sophie had been twisted and stretched, she was tossed into a container where she would wait to be packed with another sock and shipped off to a Foot World, the only company in the world which sold socks. They had thousands of stores, and they were all owned by the Foot family. But there was something different about Sophie. When she was knitted, there was, for a tiny split second, a malfunction in the big sewing machine. She shot out of the machine a lot bigger, stronger, and a different color to the other socks. Now, in most circumstances in the big factory on the big hill in Socksville, when a sock looks different to the others, it's usually thrown into a bin. However, on this occasion, Sophie managed to make it all the way down the production line, passing more than 50 factory workers who failed to spot her unusual size, color, and durability. To be fair to the factory workers, they were very tired, so it's understandable that they weren't paying attention to Sophie's special qualities as she sauntered past them. They had to work 7 days a week for 14 hours a day, with only 30 minutes break for lunch. They weren't allowed to talk to the other factory workers and were paid very little. Mr. Foot constantly kept his beady eye on the workers by watching them on CCTV. If anyone was caught breaking the rules, they would suddenly disappear and never be seen again. No one liked working at the factory, but they had very little choice. People born in Socksville had to work in the big factory on the big hill, as it was the only place they could earn money to feed their families. After making her way past the endless line of factory workers, Sophie breathed a sigh of relief. Then, out of nowhere, a robotic claw swooped from above and gobbled her up. She may have evaded the factory workers, but her unusual size and features couldn't hide from Mr. Foot's CCTV cameras. Within seconds, Sophie was swung away from the production line and found herself being dangled high in the air. She gasped as she looked down into a large open container labeled "Odd Socks." And as the claw released its grip, she closed her eyes and felt herself falling until she landed on a soft mountain of socks. "Holy socks!" shrieked Henry. He picked himself up from under Sophie, dusted himself down, regained his composure, and looked up to see her. He was immediately awestruck. He stared at her deep in thought. "I've never seen another sock like her. She's tall, she's elegant, and her cotton skin is smooth with no fluffy bits." At this point, Henry decided that he'd better say something. "I'm so sorry to stare," he said, rather bashfully. "I'm Henry. Pleased to meet you." "That's quite all right, Henry. I'm Sophie," she said while crouching down to avoid making him feel small. "Are you okay? You have a hole in your head." Oh, yes, that," he replied, looking cross-eyed as he tried to see the hole right between his eyes. "I've had that for a while now. Wear and tear, you see, although technically no one has actually worn me yet." "So you haven't just been stitched together by the big sewing machine?" asked Sophie. "Me? No, I've been here for years with all the other odd socks that no one wants," Henry said proudly. He nodded to the big sewing machine which towered above. "That giant hunk of rusty metal broke down halfway through production, and I came out a lot smaller than the normal socks that everyone wants to buy." He sighed. "I've spent my entire life trying to get out of this place. This container is emptied every single day, and every time I try to escape, I end up falling back down." Sophie shifted. "What do you mean the container is emptied every day?" Henry subtly nodded to the thousands of socks surrounding them. "These are all odd socks that can't be sold in the shops. They're either too small or they have holes in them. No one wants them, or wants us for that matter." He leaned forward and lowered his voice. "Every day at 7 p.m., this container is emptied into a giant furnace which burns and destroys us all." "What?" cried Sophie. "Every day? Does that mean I will be destroyed?" "Shh! Keep your voices down, please, Sophie," whispered Henry, pulling her to one side. "There will be absolute bedlam if this lot know they will be burnt alive in—" He peered up at the giant clock that looked down over the factory. "Holy sockamole, that can't be right. It's 6:55. Sophie, we have 5 minutes. Sophie felt a wave of heat sweep through her. "In 5 minutes? Well, what are we going to do?" "Don't worry, I've had 35 years of practice." "Wait!" cried Sophie, standing in his way. "You've been in this factory for 35 years? We're going to find out what Sophie and Henry are going to do, because I'm pretty sure Henry's got a plan. Because if he's been in there for 35 years, that's actually pretty clever of him. I just don't know what he's going to do. So, you'll have to find out. Check out Odd Socks by R.A. Powell. Sounds like a good adventure, doesn't it? All right, guys, check it out. And don't forget to fold your socks. It's a good idea.